impact on our service has been that in 2023, when the service shut down, we were serving 2,042 unduplicated passengers, individual citizens. At this point, with the demand response dial-a-ride type service that we're doing, it's down to 670. So the impact on Putnam County has been substantial. And the, what had been an award-winning, very efficient delivery format, to the point that Putnam County was seeing about 4 times the unduplicated passengers per capita than the average of the surrounding counties. Which is to say that Putnam County was enjoying a level of service that wasn't being seen in the surrounding counties that were primarily demand response type service like what we're doing now. To see that collapse has been difficult. One of the things that we are wanting to pursue in the legislature this year, we understand that funding is very tight, but what built the Putnam system was the coordination of human service transportation funding. The fact that the routes served Medicaid, non-sponsored, med waiver, that was what made those routes possible. So even though Medicaid's been pulled out of coordination through Medicaid reform, if the rural counties could see an enforceable Chapter 427, we feel that there is still sufficient funding outside of Medicaid to probably bring the routes back without any further state investment. That would include med waiver, council on aging, Veterans Affairs, perhaps Head Start. We don't know beyond that what else is out there in Putnam County that's tax funded. But if that was an enforceable statute, it would benefit both the taxpayer and the citizens of Putnam County, our ridership. So that's our basic approach to the session. Ask for these funds, recognize the frugality of the situation, and recognize that through a suggestion to better Chapter 427 that built rural transit in Florida in the first place. So we are asking for the Putnam County's Commission's support of that general approach.
Okay. Does that complete your presentation?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Thompson, refresh me again how much money you were asking for appropriations that you're asking for us to support a letter?
Right. 1.293.
That's what I thought. So 1.3, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And all you need is a letter of support that we would like an appropriation to go to you to Ride Solutions through Putnam County? So would it channel through us and go to you, or would it just go straight to you?
Channel through you and
okay.
company.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I have a question. So when you said 1.293, it would, before that, you mentioned $50,000? Did you say something about 50,000?
Rides.
It would be for bringing back the in-county flex routes.
Right, the in-county flex routes, which were free to our citizens before, right?
They were free after or during COVID and up until 23 when they shut down. Prior to 2021, they were $1 one-way trip.
Okay. Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During our discussions yesterday, I suggested that, based on what I've communicated with Judson Sapp and our other legislators, that there's not money in there for handouts and services, and those are the first things that they're looking at cutting. But the ones that they are looking at funding are the ones that are showing the initiative to self-fund and be creative and bring something to the picnic and some sort of match. So we discussed raising the rate. If you're going to Walmart and spend $100, you've got $5 to get there versus trying to take an Uber at $9 or $10. So we could still be the low-cost alternative, but we could offset the cost to the county and to the state by raising those rates. And there were some other things that we discussed, and as I told you yesterday, I was going to reach out to our city commissioner, Jones, and we spoke last night at length, and he is also interested in revisiting this topic with you. So I suggest that you reach out to him for a letter of support from the city commission as well as the county, if you are able to acquire that from us today.
Right.
That's all I got.
Mr. Boyd,
appreciate
do you have partnerships with like the hospital or other kind of organizations for transit? Do you work with them and try to do contracts with them?
We have submitted the hospital had a work available maybe 6 months ago to transport people from the ER.
Yes.
We submitted a proposal to them on that. I went back and forth several times, but ultimately we assumed that it went to somebody else.
Oh, okay. Just seems like if we were able to coordinate some kind of contractual service with some of these places, maybe some of the healthcare situations, it seems like maybe you could get some vouchers. And I mean, I'm just trying to think outside the box to get some different kind of income coming in other than state funding, because I think I'm with Commissioner Alexander from what we're hearing. You're going to be really challenged in getting funds from the legislature. I don't have a problem submitting and supporting your ask, because I do know that we need public transportation in Putnam County. I see it all the time. I would also ask that you, if you were able to get some additional funding, that I guess one of my questions is, how do you reach the people that are on the street? How do they know, somebody that's coming in the soup kitchen, how do they know that they need, where they can get when you were in service, how did they know that you could get a ride?
Right. The people that had agencies supporting them, such as ARC or Medicaid, those were the easy ones to get in contact with. But about 50% of our ridership was general public walk-on. And the routes were built prior to internet and Facebook, and it generally took, we planned on 3 years of operation before word of mouth was.
Yeah, I know that I've served at Bread of Life before, and I've seen people come in and they walked all the way or rode a bike all the way from San Mateo just to get a meal. And in the heat, I've seen them standing out there sweating and asking for water before the food's served, just because they've had to come that far. And I also know that there's people that's in town that have to walk or push each other in their wheelchairs and everything else. And then when you ask them, they didn't, at the time, they wasn't even aware that they could have gotten a free bus ride. So I think there's a big gap in how do we reach the people who most need those rides. I think there's a gap in that. And if you were able to move forward, I hope that we can reach out and make sure that we can touch, get the information out so that people use the bus, because the perception is, and I'm not being critical, but the perception is when you see one person riding around on a 16-passenger bus or 18-passenger bus, then people go, what's going on? You only have one person on a bus. I know there's a lot more to that than just, it's just not that simple.
Right.
But the perception for people, that it becomes reality and they don't understand. Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo exactly what you said. It's the dissemination of the information regarding how we get this information out to the public. We discussed that yesterday in our meeting, and I always hate to revert back to Facebook, but that's an easy way to reach people. But we also discussed, I shared the contact information for a number of the home health agencies here in town, and I suggested that they contact a lot of the local physicians, because it pays dividends for them to be able to get the patients there. They're going to get reimbursed by insurance. If you can spend the money to get a patient there, you're going to get $500 or $600 back on a visit. Whatever. I mean, I'm just throwing out round numbers, but. And the hospital was something very unique that Mr. Grimes and Mrs. Young pointed out yesterday, that there's opportunities there for revenue. So I believe there are opportunities out there to fund a portion of this and to show that you are taking an initiative. And if we can prove that and document it, it's going to be a lot easier ask when you go to Tallahassee.
Certainly.
Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's easy for us to sit up here and say, have you done this? Have you tried that? But I think that some good advice is coming out right now and some good ideas. And it's always better when we can collaborate that. I, too, have witnessed the one person in the vehicle, but I understand. But maybe at some of these locations, like in the West End at Hitchcock's, a sign that we're going to be here at this time, and the cost of riding is $3, because I'm hearing people who are Ubering in from West Putnam into Palatka, and you do know that's a lot more expensive. So, and then maybe some of our faith-based organizations can do some type of grants to help people. Maybe we pay $1.50 of their $3 charge or something, to get people around. We can do things like that, and churches would be glad to do that, but first of all, there's got to be a need. And it's not just, okay, I want to ride the bus today. I just don't have any other transportation. And Putnam County is probably not more unique than any other county, but when you go from the west end to the south end and it takes an hour and a half to do that, transportation is an issue in this county. So if we can partner with you, maybe put some signs up, maybe do some things like that, the bus will be here. Maybe people will see it. But again, nobody needs help until they really need help, and then they don't know where to get help. And for us to pass the word and hand a flyer out to someone in a food line or getting a meal or something, or at our church that this is available to you, maybe that's a possibility. So thank you.
We will push out more into public outreach at this point. We've been dealing with the financial aspect of the collapse of the routes, and it's been substantial.
Commissioner Palacio, you're recognized.
Commissioner Harris, when I served with her previously, this was one of her babies, and she very heartily put it on my forehead to keep pushing with this and keep driving behind this if I were to ever stay in office or come back to office. So in support of her, Madam Chair, if you're looking for a motion, I'll make that.
Yes, sir. All right, moving into our planning and development public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Zachary Baker, Planning and Development Services. This is a public hearing for rezone case REZ 24-000011. The Ramirez family own a piece of property that's currently C2 commercial retail. Their application is for commercial general C3 on a 0.79 acre parcel at the intersection of West Oak Street and North Highway 17. The property is split future land use, both commercial and urban service, 150 foot of road frontage on Highway 17, 220 feet of road frontage on Oak Street. According to the GIS, there are no apparent jurisdictional wetlands, and the property is within FEMA Flood Zone X, which is not a special flood hazard area. If the rezone today is approved and adopted through ordinance, the applicants will be required to go through the Development Review Committee before they establish their proposed use on site, which is a landscape supply store. Here we can see an aerial view of the property. Here you can see that split future land use, both of which allow for commercial zoning. This image is helpful because it shows that at the corner of North Highway 17 and East Harris Street, kind of cat-a-corner from the property, that is where we have the closest commercial general C3 designation. And this is a conceptual plan of what that proposed use could look like. Staff recommends approval to amend the zoning map from C2 to C3 at the December 11th, 2024 Planning Commission hearing. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of such case. I can take any questions.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
I have one.
Okay, Commissioner Alexander.
When we change the zoning to C3, what are some examples of other businesses beyond this that can be put on that property, Mr. Baker?
Very good question. I'm pulling out a copy of my staff report to answer. Give me 1 second. Just let me know when you'd like me to stop.
Oh, wow.
Retail, sales, food, or general services, offices, clubs, indoor and outdoor commercial recreation, lodging, cultural, civic, religious facilities, emergency services, child and adult daycares, passenger vehicle sales, rental and service, excluding auto body repair, recreational vehicle and boat sales and service, portable building display and sales, mini warehouses, hospitals, with a special use permit, education, essential public services, outdoor auction, auto body repair, child and adult daycare centers, group residential homes, nursing home, assisted living facilities, heavy vehicle sales, rental and service, flea market, nightclub, kennel, communication towers, and finally, heavy equipment sales and service. It's worth noting that any of those uses would be limited on the size of the property, parking requirements, impervious surface requirements, and the like.
Good deal. Okay, just wondering, because we have some residential area close to there. I didn't know how that was going to affect those residents. I thought it was a good question to pose.
Yes, sir. We do have residential uses within that area. Pretty much everything along that North Highway 17 corridor. If it's residential, it would be considered non-conforming because the zoning for that area and the future land use are a mixture of commercial. That said, buffers are how we would, try to counteract any sort of negative impact on the residential uses that are located west of the subject property.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions for staff? Any public comment for or against this item? Any public comment in the record?
One moment. Yes, so I did receive a text message. If you'd like me to try and address some of these questions, I can.
Yes.
But a representative of the MB8 group, which holds property in the vicinity, has comments pertaining to what are the business hours, how early can the business start in the morning, and how late are they going to end the day, what are the bulk materials that the company will have on property, and we would like for them to put a row of trees to absorb the sound and dust. Or would they be able to install irrigation system to lessen the dust that is going to be produced, especially if they have stone and or mulch? Also, with the mulch, we have concerns about the potential smell. A second text message for the record: "Hi, Zach, please send me the link." This was sent to me at 9:20 a.m. I did not have time to prepare a response, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. These are things that'll be handled through the DRC, I believe.
That's correct, ma'am. And for what it's worth, we wouldn't have any sort of limitation on the hours of operation of that use. It would kind of fall under the amplified noise ordinance.
Yeah. Okay. It's back to the board. Is there any other, all right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I move approval of staff recommendation of the request to amend the zoning map from commercial retail C2 to commercial general C3 as proposed amendment is consistent with the adopted goals, objectives, and policies of Putnam County Comprehensive Plan, and it's compatible with the existing development in the area.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Alexander. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. On to consent agenda items.
Did we take a 2-minute break?
Yeah, we're going to take a 2-minute break. Thank you. The Board of County Commissioner meeting. Public comments on agenda items. This portion of the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It is not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation about matters on which the board has received no prior information as part of the agenda. Please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment cards are conveniently placed at the meeting room entrance and should be submitted prior to the meeting to the deputy clerk who sits to the right of the podium. Madam Clerk, do you have any cards? All right. Is there anybody who wants to speak on consent agenda items only? All right.
I think Mr. Favory, Malcolm Favory, would like to speak regarding the Putnam
Yes, sir.
County.
We have to go through the consent agenda, and then we'll do that. Yes, sir. Commissioners, do you wish to pull anything? Commissioner Alexander?
I'm sorry, I broke protocol there.
It's okay.
On item I, I'd like to pull that and allow Mr. Favory to speak on that.
Okay. Commissioner Newbold?
Nothing to pull, thank you.
Commissioner Palacier?
I have nothing.
Commissioner?
Harvey? No,
Harvey.
I have none either, Madam Chair.
All right, I have none, other than item
Madam Chair,
I.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent agendas items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and J.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign. All right. Commissioner Alexander, item I.
Yes, I'd like to recognize Malcolm Fabry, President of the Putnam County Fair Board. He has a few items he'd like to speak about regarding the fair.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Y'all simple enough. It's pretty straightforward, most of the stuff y'all seen on that. Lee Duran, Sam Sullivan's been a big help to us, as Julianne, JR, and several others on staff. This has been going on for 2.5 years, so several of you are new to the board, or a couple of you are new. I want y'all to know, how this has been going on. But when we started 4 years ago, we put the grant in actually 4.5 years ago. And at that time, the grant was pretty close to what we would need. Due to COVID, escalation, inflation, as the gentleman spoke a little bit earlier, everything went astronomical. When we started getting the grant, got approved almost 2.25 years later, we were way behind the curveball. So we got on at the time. We met with the state, talked to them. They had told us Citrus County went through 6. Dade had went through 5, several phases of their operation, and they suggested the same thing. So we continued moving forward with the project. We could continue to put in. We got $1,125,000 the first go-round. We got $1.7 million on the second go-round. I come forward to y'all a year ago, and we discussed that and talked about it when y'all were voting to support the contract for us. What we ended up having to do last year was, unless we paid a professional estimator $70,000, there was no way to get a clear-cut amount of where we're going to be at. So we discussed it with the county, and we decided the best provision was to go ahead and get it out for bid. We explained to all the bidders at the pre-bid meeting that this would be a phased approach, that we wanted to get this in to see what our real cost would be so we could continue to submit for the grant funding. We got that amount in. We submitted for the grant again this year. We submitted for the max, $3 million. Bobby Payne was a big help to me over the years. So was Keith Perry. I've already met with Judson Sapp. I've talked to him about it. I've already met with, and will be meeting with Keith's successor. And Taylor Yurkowski has been a big help to us, so I'm already trying to lay that groundwork, as I know y'all are too. We've reached out to David Browning. Sam's wrote a nice letter on behalf of the county and sent in the stuff for us. So we're trying to get all these things in, but we do want you to know this phased approach will benefit us the best because the contractor that's been awarded that has been working with us on that phased approach. So what we'll end up with in the end is something very nice at that fairgrounds, that with all the people that we're bringing in here, and y'all know we have a big competition right next to us. Clay County's the week right after us, 110,000 3 years ago, 140 the next year, 170 last year.
Wow.
So, they're eating our lunch when it comes to that. So we're trying to get the infrastructure at our fairgrounds to where we can try and draw in as many as we can. We don't want to be Clay County. We're not going to be Clay County. But we do want to be the best Putnam can, and we feel this is with y'all's support. Thank you for your time.
Don't go anywhere. Commissioner Harvey, no, I have
Thank you,
questions.
thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the Fair Board that we appoint and move this forward. Do want to say, though, my only caution, and I've said it many times, as long as we know we're going into this with eyes wide open, okay? I've talked to our staff. We are going to try to do the best we can to value engineer this once we sign the contract. But sometimes we want the Cadillac, but we have to get the Yugo car. We want all that. This is an expo center. This is going to be Putnam County's premier place, I believe, to have events at. And it's not just a fairgrounds anymore. We can throw that word out. We use it for much more than fair. Part of it's fair, but truly the expo center, the convention hall type situation, going to be really great for Putnam County. And those buildings are used a lot. So as long as we know going in that, there could be some liability on our part going down the road, because these grants are encouraged, but they're not promised. And I don't have a bit of problem going down that road with our staff, with the Fair Authority right now. I don't have a bit of problem. But I just want us to be recognizable of the fact that there might come a day where we go, we've done enough, as we can't go any further at this. And this is what it's going to cost to make this building happen. But I appreciate all your efforts. I really do.
Mr. Harvey, that's exactly why I was here today, just to make sure I brought y'all up to date so y'all had the best, closest information from I know the staff gives you theirs, but just to hear from us, we've taken this approach. We agree with exactly what you're saying. Terry Turner gave me the same speech a year and a half ago, so I completely agree with you and support you and understand that we
We're
hear you.
invoking Nancy Harris and Commissioner Turner today, correct? It's okay, good.
And if y'all have noticed, if
Not a bad
anyone
thing.
has, like our address, the web address is Putnam County Fair and Expo.
Yeah.
We know we're an expo. We've been pushing for that.
Yeah.
And we've had your support the last couple of years because y'all have asked us to try and expand that. And myself, the previous president, and several of those members, I've made trips to Tallahassee. I mean, me and Wayne McLean, Wayne's helped get me to some people. Bobby helped get me some people. I've made 2 trips up there to meet with people. I've been on the phone multiple times now with David Browning. We're doing everything we can to put our best foot forward to support this plan. And everyone that we talk to at the state has told us, including our chair of agriculture, Mr. Simpson has backed us on this stuff, but they have all told us the same thing the last 6 months. It's been 2.5 years, y'all. We hear you, but we keep giving you money. Show us something. Show us.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to get this $2.48 million out and get
Right.
this work started.
Yep, no, you're exactly right. Commissioner Newbold?
Thank you. And I appreciate Commissioner Harvey's caution and words of wisdom. We are kind of at a tipping point. We're at a nexus. I appreciate your special talents and guidance through this process. We've got a great team at the Fair Board, a great team of staff that is financially cautious and aware. I'm going to push for a Toyota rather than a Yugo.
Easy now.
Can we make it General Motors?
Yeah, can we make it a Chevrolet? Thank you.
There we go. That worked too. Anyway, appreciate all your efforts and the efforts of staff and commission. I think this is a good project. It's worth the effort and the little risk that there is there. So, and there is some risk, but it'll be an asset for the community. I appreciate the efforts.
Commissioner Palacier?
I have the same feelings as my comrades here. I've met with Mr. Grimes earlier this week, and he brought me up to speed on everything there of how that's progressing. He has some pretty good ideas of some cost-saving ideas that I think are going to be very beneficial to the whole county and to this project. And he's doing a fine job, and I applaud him, and I want to spur him to victory on cutting those corners where he can and saving us some money. And he shared with me some comparisons to some other counties, and he's got them scratching their head as where he's cutting and saving corners on some issues. So we're with you.
Commissioner Alexander?
No, I want to echo again what Mr. Newbold said. Mr. Favory, you and your team there at the board, you guys invest tons and tons of time in this. What do you guys get paid?
Oh, not a penny, no, sir.
Not a dime, do you?
No, sir.
And I just want the public to realize what you guys do and the amount of effort and the time that you dedicate to this for no money, just for the betterment of the community, and say thank you.
And you're 100% there, Mr. Alexander. That's exactly what we do. My trips to Tallahassee, the motel rooms, going and meeting, and every time, you got to grease the wheel, right? So when I go meet with Taylor, when I met with these people, I absolutely buy them dinner. I absolutely, anything I can do. Now, we're not paying for something. We're just meeting with them. But the point is they're supporting us, and they're trying to get the information they need to go back. And they've all said in March that this stuff's going to come up for their budget. So I'm just trying to get all the information out there. But, we work real hard out there. And I can tell you, we pick up a lot of support in this county. Gator's given us support here lately on getting some things done at that expo hall for us. So, it's things like that. So we're not coming to you on bended knee all the time asking for money. And we try not to do that. But we do try to utilize the grants as best we do. And we do have a lot of support in Tallahassee right now for those grants. So we're going to continue to push forward and try and get them. And what we get back this year should get us to where we have the window now, because we know what the bids were. We know what the money is. We get this now. Will we get the full $3 million that we've asked for? We don't know. But whatever we do, we're pretty good with math. So we'll be able to make that calculation. And on that fourth phase, we should be able to wrap up what we're doing. And right now, talking to Citrus, talking to Dave, the other counties that done it, they went 6 phases of 7, had no problems. But as you recognize, Madam Chair, that can change any time. Any election can change what goes on. So we recognize the importance of having to move forward. But we do appreciate y'all's support.
Thank you, Malcolm. Before I recognize you, Commissioner Palacier, so help me understand and the general public understand the finances. So when somebody comes in and they pay a fee to get into during the fair, and that goes in your budget, how does that what do you do with your funds? I mean, just give us a general overview.
Yes, ma'am. Probably 80%, 85% of our funds go back into the fairgrounds.
As far as like capital improvements?
That's exactly right, ma'am. We've probably spent, last year, we spent $87,000 on the roof, on the building. So we had the old Maltby building, because that is still structurally a very good building, but the roof had gotten bad. And I was trying to get, y'all had met with Mr. Suggs, and we were going to try and get a little bit of money to help out with it, but it was too late for getting budget. So we forked that out. Now that pretty much wiped our profit out for the previous fair. This year and 2 years ago, we've been spending a tremendous amount on the electrical infrastructure. We've added in more camping slots. We've added in more capability so when the fair's here, that they're not having to use temporary generators pulling cords all the way around. And by putting those slots, it allows us to, when we have bigger things in town, that we can actually rent camper spaces out there and make some money off of it.
Okay.
We do have a part-time employee, a staff member, that's a contractor that works our fair manager, and she does a great job for us, but we pay her a salary.
Yeah.
And that's really the only money that goes out, other than the help that we use there, one person that helps us do ground maintenance and stuff. But other than that, every penny that's raised goes back into the livestock program, the fair, the infrastructure, 100% of that.
And then when you guys rent out the building, those funds go back to you. They do not come back to the county.
You are correct, ma'am, and all that goes right back into those programs.
Now, what kind of cost does the county have?
The only thing that y'all put out right now, you pay roughly $10,000 towards the liability insurance. We pay $4,000. Y'all include us on the landscape maintenance, the grass cutting contract. I think we get, I forget, it's 12 cuts a year, 8 cuts a year that we get out of that. And other than miscellaneous stuff, that's probably the bigger ticket items.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I think if we were able to get this building done, I think that we should look at a different structure for this expo hall as we move forward, because I feel like that if the county has some financial obligation on that building, that perhaps we should be part of the revenue sharing on that. That's my personal opinion, but I think we'll just have to address that when we get it, because I do have concern that once, if for some reason, I mean, we don't have a plan B, and if we don't get the state money, then the fair board and the county is going to have some serious conversation as to how we move it forward. And I'm very hopeful, and you've done everything, it sounds like, and I applaud you. It sounds like you've done everything you can to try to get the ball off the ground and get it, and hopefully bring the money home on finishing this project. And I'm really hopeful for that, because if not, we're going to have to have a very serious conversation of how do we finish it. But at the same time, you can't get to point B if you don't get point A done. And so this is point A, and we've got to finish at point A. So I'm supportive. I just had some questions for myself and for the general public to understand how things sort of operate. Commissioner Palacier?
I just want to thank Commissioner Alexander for bringing that to the front, that everybody on your board is volunteer basis. And Commissioner Newbold was a former member of your board and did a very fine job. And it's through people like you that volunteer efforts that make our little county turn and grow, and that's what it takes throughout our county is volunteers, and how important they are to us and the everyone here to get things done in a county our size. And anyhow, just wanted to say I'm with you 100%. But I understand Commissioner Wilkinson's concerns about the finances. But as she said, you got to take a step somewhere.
Yeah, we got to take the step. I mean, when they asked, I said definitely we need to put this on the agenda because we have to get it moving. So I appreciate the time and effort that you put in with the Fair Authority. I really do. And everybody that's on your team. So thank you. Thank you for coming today, and we appreciate it. We're very supportive.
Thank y'all.
I need a motion.
Yep.
I make a motion, we approve consent agenda I, item I.
Item I.
I'll second that motion.
We have a proper motion, a proper second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. All right, going into new business. Are there any public comments on new business items? All right, hearing none. Administration. Item A.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Mr. Tilton, how are you? This is Briar Tilton.
Good morning, Budget.
Good morning. I'm Briar Tilton. I'm in the budget department at the BOCC, and I'll kind of be going over the Q1 report. So on the general fund, you'll see that our taxes are at 80%, And this is because our revenues in the general fund are front heavy, and taxes are collected early because they're ad valorem, and then the rest will kind of trickle in throughout the year. And then you'll see that we're at 28% for permits, fees, and special assessments, and that's on track. And then intergovernmental will be your federal and state revenue shares. And we're right on track for that. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'll get it. Our total percentage for the general fund revenues is at 65%, and we see that that's right on track typically for this time of the year. Our expenses for personnel services are at 26%, and that's about what we want to see because we're a quarter through the year. If you're at 50% for personnel services, then something's wrong and you need to check that out. Operating expenses for the general fund, we're at 16%, which is on track. You'll see the operating expenses kind of tick up throughout the year as you go more. And all in all, we're at 24% for the general fund expenses. For the general fund reserves continued, we have $2,160,000. For reserves for the clerk, we have $354,000. Capital outlay, we have million. And then our cash balance for it is at $7.8 million for a total of $15.5 million about for our reserve balance in the general fund. For capital outlay, you'll kind of notice that they're kind of across the board. For capital, if you have more machinery and equipment, you're going to see that it's easier to get that earlier in the year compared to like a big building project that takes time to build out. For the transportation fund, it's slower revenue because the taxes are not ad valorem based. It's more local options and like the 9-cent county tax, so it's sales and use. So we're at 28% for the taxes, which is right on track. And then for the total of the general or the transportation fund, we're at 10%. For expenses, we're at 25% for personnel services, which is about what we're going to see across all of them. Operating expenses, we're at 15%, and capital outlay, we're at 34%. And again, that's because transportation has more vehicles compared to buildings. We have $615,000 in the reserves, $1.1 million in the future projects, and $47,000 in the reserves for MSB roads, giving us $1,785,000. For the fire fund is ad valorem based, and it's based off the fire tax unit, and it's right on track at 82%. And then you have 5% from the intergovernmental, which is your federal and state shares. And then for a total of 63% of our revenues have been collected in the fire fund, which is right on track where we typically are each year. Again, the personnel services are at 26%, which is what we want to see. While operating is a little low, but I'm sure that'll tick up over time. And then our capital is at 19%. And that gives us a 20% of our expense for the fire fund, which is right on track. And our reserves are at $353,000, while our capital outlay is at $327,000, giving us $680,000 in the reserves. And then for the sanitation fund, our solid waste assessment fees come out of taxes. So you'll see that they are higher at the beginning, but also it's fee-based, and you have charges for services. So they also have contracts that come out through the month. So you'll see that it's kind of more of a balance fund, but the revenue stream is right on track for that at 61% for the permits, fees, and special assessments, 27% for charges for services, and that gives us a total revenue source of 53% in the sanitation fund. Our personnel services are at 26% again, which is right on track, and our operating expenses are at 16%. Capital outlay is a little low at 3%, but again, that's because they have more bigger projects compared to just like equipment. For a total of 14% total expenses. Now, their reserves the regular reserves are at $2.8 million, while the reserves for future projects are at $11 million, and the reserves for escrow future is at $24 million, giving us 38.5 million in reserves. And those reserves in escrow and future projects are set aside. They're not to be touched. They're for like closing future sales or different projects like that. And then finally, that brings us to the East Putnam Water Fund. You'll see that the intergovernmental category is very big, and the majority of that comes from the water supply federal money and the FDEP septic to sewer federal money. And then the charges for services are user-based fees, and that's why it's at 23%, because we're about a quarter of the way through the year, but also we are planning on getting more users, so you'll hopefully see that uptick some, but we're right on track where it's expected to be. And then our other financing sources are transfers from the general fund and BPP fund. And that gives us a total of 7% of revenues received for the East Putnam Water Fund. For personnel services, we're at 28%, and operating is at 11%, but that's pretty much on track for those funds, giving us a 9% total of expenses out of East Putnam Water Fund. And our reserves for continue regular is $430,000. Our reserve for future projects is $77,000, and our reserve for debt is $982,000, giving us almost $1.5 million in the reserves for East Putnam Water Fund. Sorry, I was very nervous, but I'm done now if y'all have any questions.
All right. You did a great job, Brian. Are you ready for some questions?
Maybe.
All right, Commissioner Harvey.
Right, now the nervous part really comes in, okay? Actually, you did a very good job. You spoke clearly and slowly.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get fast reports, but today you did a very good job.
Yeah, I'm not having to wear a jacket right now, so.
Just teasing, just having a little levity. We're going to vote Commissioner Pickens. A little levity never hurt anything, okay? I'm glad you brought out on the sanitation fund for the new commissioners. Sanitation, you'd think that's an easy throw it in the hole and you're done, but it's really not that simple, and it's very complicated. And those reserves are set by FDEP that tells us what we need to have and the amounts we need to have. So I'm glad you really honed in on that. That's very important for us to know. Even though that looks like a large number, and it is, it's really something that we cannot touch and fool with a whole lot.
It's very expensive to close cells and things at the
Landfills are very complicated, but they're very profitable, too, at the same time. And I'm glad we kept our landfill for that reason. So thank you, Breyer. Mr. Tilton, you did a fine job today. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Newbold.
Thank you. Yeah, you did a great job, covered a lot of ground, and nice job. I only have one question back up in the general fund section and the expense portion. Grants and aids. That one's a little high. What falls in the grants and aids expenses in that portion of the budget?
Can I defer to Mr. Leanne? I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. And I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
I don't want to give you any wrong information.
Nope.
So those are going to be anything that we do, like your CRA district to the city of Palatka, the city of Crescent City, your payments in lieu of taxes for the nursing homes, those things like Meridian Healthcare that we support, all of those grants and aids to other governmental or quasi-governmental agencies.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And they traditionally are not paid equal, so you'll see cyclical payments, i.e. our CRA payments are all paid in December, so you're getting a lump sum of them, so you're not going to see a steady expenditure through the year for that category. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Palacio, you're recognized.
Just to simplify it there, Mr. Tilton, at this stage of the game, are we where we need to be?
Yes, sir.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to tell us about your other skill that I watched you demonstrate this weekend?
No, I'm good. I just was cutting sugar cane with my family.
He was making sugar cane.
That's awesome.
Well, he's making syrup.
Yes, sir.
All right. I have one question about the St. John's Harbor water. Are we not pulling that separate, or how are we keeping up with the funds and what we're doing in that area?
St. John's Harbor is set up in a separate fund. Originally, when we prepared these budget reports, the commission directed the funds they wanted to see. If you'd like St. John's Harbor added, we absolutely will add it to the next report.
Okay, that would be great. I just want to keep up with that because we are receiving complaints that people don't like the fact that we had to raise their rates. And so it'd be like nice for all 5 of us commissioners to completely understand the dollars and cents in that area.
Yep, and we can send you out a report this afternoon or tomorrow morning of where that fund is.
Yeah.
And then going forward, we'll include that in our public presentation.
Yeah. Mr. Suggs, did you have a comment?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing that up. And then as soon as that report is generated, I'll follow up with my conversation that I shared earlier with the citizen, and I'll make sure that I reach back out to that citizen, have some
Yeah.
further conversation.
So for the new commissioners, what happened was we had to take over St. John's Harbor out in my district in Bostwick, and they were already, it cost the county $1 million right off the get-go. We haven't spent that money yet, but we are in the process of having to, we didn't get a choice. We got handed the water system, and it's just not, it's not in the black. It's going to be a long time before it's in the black. And so the mindset of the commission at that time was the remaining citizens in Putnam County shouldn't have to pay for a handful of people water that quite frankly didn't take care of their problem.
Yes,
And they were paying a fine of $15,000 a month. And that's the reality. And so we didn't have a choice in the matter, but we did have to raise the rates. So if you do get those phone calls, that is why that we had to raise those rates to sort of make up some of those costs. So a report would be great. Thank you. All right, Briar, thank you.
Thank you.
And the team support. I love it. All right, next on the item under new business is Public Works road resurfacing list for 2024 and 2025. Exciting times in Putnam County.
Do you want me to touch on the harbor for just a second for the
Sure.
3 new ones? Some of the money that has already been spent, as soon as we got out there, we had to replace all of the water meters. Many of them had not even been touched, and we couldn't tell you how long because the meters were under dirt, and then when we dug them up, they were submerged in water. So whatever was read was not accurate. So we replaced every meter in the harbor and zeroed everybody out. Some still owed money from the previous water bills, and so that was brought into their current accounts with us. Our engineer is working on redoing the wastewater pond that's out there. That has to be done. That was part of the fine that was referenced by Commissioner Wilkinson. So there's a lot going on, and we appreciate the BOCC giving us that money up front to make the harbor right, and it's going to take us a while.
Yeah. When you say a while, are you thinking a few years?
A few years before, and I'm not going to say we're going to be in the black in a few years.
Oh, no, I understand that.
But to get us compliant with DEP is going to take us another year or two, because there's just a lot of construction that needs to take place with the new the wastewater pond that's out there, so that we can get the fine taken care of with DEP. And I believe, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, we're getting some relief from them because we took it over, correct? Yeah. They know we're making it right, so they've given us some grace.
So we're not paying the $15,000
Right,
a month?
they're giving us grace on that one.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alexander?
So just so I understand and the public understands, so when one of these water treatment plants goes south and they abandon it, we are obligated as a county to step in
To
and
step
take
in
that
and take it
over.
over, correct.
Per state statute.
Yep.
Per state statute. So we don't have a choice. We have to spend that money and we have to take it over, just so everybody understands that.
Correct. Yep, and I believe it was, Ms. Young, was it August 1 we took it? I think. Yeah, so August 1 we took it over, and that was another reason that all of the rates had to go up. Their monthly bills were based on 6,000 gallons a month. We brought them into what we do in East Putnam, which is 2,000 gallons a month, and then an additional cost per thousand over that. And a lot of citizens are now understanding that they didn't realize how much water they were using. And now they are checking for leaky pipes and leaky toilets, and, you know, because if it's running.
They're not watering their yard when it's raining.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want people to understand that we don't do this as a money grab or, a profit sharing opportunity. It's because we have to.
We're
Yes.
only bleeding out there. We're not making any money.
Exactly. I just want everybody to be aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Commissioner Newbold?
What's the size of that water system? It's not in my backyard. I don't have a feel for how many users are on the system.
Users, you're looking at, I want to say 150-ish. And it is actually only operating at like 25% capacity. We have installed a new air compressor out there that's going to help with some of the pressure that's out there, because it took forever to fill up the pressure in the tank to get the water to go out. So we've made some adjustments there, again, with the money that was given to us. And once, I would like to then start to bring other people on the system to help get us closer to the black. And if we get more people on the system, then we might be able to bring monthly expenditures down.
I agree.
And but that's going to be, again, one of those years in the future progress that we make out there.
Right, right. Thank you for that update. I know we got sidetracked a little bit. If we want to go on into the road resurfacing list.
Yeah, so first, are there any questions that I can answer right away on, or I can just give a narrative on?
Yeah, just give a narrative first,
Okay.
and then we'll go
So
from there.
This was really just a staff recommendation for road resurfacing. And many of the roads that are on the list have not been touched in 10 or more years. If I go through the list, if you look at County Road 308, that has not been touched since 2016, and it has several very bad spots in that road that need to be redone. There's one that's just on the Crescent City side of Dead Man's Curve out in front of Jim Padgett's property. It's right on a curve, and it's really bad. Right before the railroad tracks is bad. There's just, and Commissioner Newbold knows it because he drives it a lot, that I don't want to drag a boat down that road because it's that bad. If you go to County Road 308B, that road has not been resurfaced since 2007. If you go to Old Highway 17, that was done in 2016. But the section that I've asked for is from Junction Road south to 17, so it's south of Crescent City. There's another section similar to that's worse than what's on 308. We've actually engaged with Universal Engineering Services out of Gainesville. They're going to come look at a section that's just off of 17. We call it the whoop-de-woo section. I would not come off of 17 going more than 30 or 35 because it ain't going to be fun. And it's not a hands-up roller coaster. You're going to pucker. So I would be careful. I'm sorry, I should not have said that. So anyway, because that road is just the whoop-de-woos that are happening. There's some subsurface problems, and that's why we've engineered.
Invoking all the commissioners today, because Commissioner Palacier mentioned that.
Is that an official term, whoop-de-whoop?
Well, it is in Public Works, because if you say whoop-de-woo, we know exactly where you're talking about on Old Highway 17. So that's where that's at. So we've gotten some borings that we're waiting to get the results from, so that when we do engage with the contractor, they know what they need to do in that specific section. Because if we just go do a mill and fill in a year or two, it's going to be back to the whoop-de-woos. So we got to figure out what's going on right there.
Madam Chair, we're not going to put signs up that say whoop-de-whoop, right? Because on St. John's Avenue, we got one that says bump, and then you come to a bump. Okay, I'm just saying. So we're not going to go.
We could say roller coaster ahead, do something like
Wow.
that.
Wow.
I'm
I'm over here trying to be so serious
I know,
today.
legal over there is like having a heart attack.
No kidding.
So those are the big roads, and then with Palm Avenue, let's see, we don't even have records of Crill to 20 or Crill to 100 on when that was done last. I had that looked at this morning. Kennedy Street has not been touched since '02, and Junction Road has not been touched since '97. The last time they did it, they did one lane. They didn't do the other lane because of a drainage problem that Public Works is fixing right now.
Okay.
They're actually down there right now fixing the drainage problem all the way to Denver Road. So once that's done, and it was just the road, just the irrigation in that area is really wet, and it just kept seeping onto the road, and that's why they didn't redo that lane, because it was just undermining the subsurface. So we're fixing that right now, and then we can go in and do that one lane.
Okay, before I call on commissioners, I just want to clarify. So you said Old Highway 17 was 2016?
Correct.
So, that doesn't sound like it's that long ago.
It's
I mean,
not.
8 years ago does not seem, it seems like we should be able to get longer out of a road.
I got it.
And that road,
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I could just intervene just one quick second. That
Please.
2016 fix on County Road 308 and on Old Highway 17.
Yes.
It may be listed as a resurface, but it was replacing the cross culverts underneath those roads, which is just south of Denver Road. It is a small segment that was patched in 2016. That was not the entire road.
Okay.
So we may need to look what the segments were in the entire road. The same thing, it goes for in 2016 on County Road 308, which was done just east or west of our landfill, where the road was starting to collapse right there, and also closer down to where Georgetown Shortcut Road comes out onto 308. We had Both of them go across a little wet spot that comes out of Lake Margaret. And the road, the same thing is down south on, as Mr. Stout just referenced, Crescent City, where we had unsuitable soils underneath the road. The road started collapsing, and they went in and fixed and resurfaced those two areas. So we did get longer than since 2016 out of the entire road. We just had a resurfacing portion of the road to where they did the drainage work and the stabilization of the unsuitables.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that up, because I know what will happen. There are citizens in this county that will say, my road's 15 years old, why aren't you looking at that when this one's done only 8 years ago? Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And invoking Commissioner Turner, I guess everything's going back to District 1 this year. But no, in all sincerity, I'm a county commissioner at the end of the day. We're all elected by the folks and throughout the whole county.
Correct.
And, sometimes areas win, sometimes they lose. But the main thing we're here is to try to save our roadbed before it collapses and goes away, and it costs double that money to fix it. So when I first saw this list, I went, ooh, everything's going to District 1. But trust me, District 4 just got $13 million, District 4 and 5, from FDOT to replace County Road 315 that the taxpayers didn't have to pay. So I'm supportive of this, and when you tell me we need it, I trust you. I trust the fact that these roads are in bad need. And so if it falls in District 1 or falls in District 3 or 2, I don't care, as long as we take care of our investment, and roads are an investment in their economic development in this county. So I appreciate you bringing that to us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Pelletier, you're recognized.
Mr. Stout, the Kennedy Street had a very large pothole that I called the city about earlier this week, and the young lady there told me that part of that road was ours and part of it is the city. Is that your understanding?
Yes. So the part that we're from Elwood to the school, right behind the Mellon, is where we are. That's ours, and that's what we're going to be resurfacing.
Okay. Anyhow, she was going to look into it, and if it was ours, contact us. I mean, she was going to dig into it.
Okay.
I, like Commissioner Harvey, also want to mention that District 5 kind of overlooked here, but that's all right. As he said, it's all about the whole county, and we'll get our day in the sunshine hopefully soon. And I guess my other question is a commence date on when any of these projects might start.
We're looking at, I would like to be able to have the design finished and then go out to bid sometime in June. And I'm putting a lot on our engineer to do that. He's probably sitting back there wide-eyed right now. Yeah. But I would like to have that done going into 26, because in this summer I would like to bring you a list for 26 so that we can hit the ground running in 26 with a road resurfacing list.
Before I call on Commissioner Newbold, I want to say one of the best decisions we've made is getting you a good up and running engineering department.
Yes, ma'am.
It has made a world of difference in the projects that we can move forward.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you and your team and your engineering group. Commissioner Newbold, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, it is nice to see the activity in District 1. And I figured we'd get a little comment here today, but I'd like to, no matter where this is, I appreciate maintenance's engineering and just their footwork. They assess all aspects of the county from one end to the other. And I like this idea of doing large swaths in one concentrated area, no matter if it's in the east, the west, the north, the south. We're going to get a lot more mileage for the dollar we put out.
Right.
We're going to get millings so that we can do, possibly dirt to improve surface. I think we're going to, this idea is going to pay dividends.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what the savings are when it comes to mobilization. 308 intersects with 308B. 308 is right down there by Old Highway 17. So if a contractor was lucky enough to get low bid on all three, then you're going to see some good savings. And that's something that we'll put in the bid is what would be the discounted bid if you're awarded all three of these roads, because they're right next to each other.
Right.
Board thinking.
Yep.
And are you done? I'm sorry. As far as Palm Avenue, these are the sections of Palm Avenue that have been left out.
Correct.
We did a portion of Palm Avenue, and now this is
Yeah,
the remaining.
we went south from Crill, and now we're going to go north on Palm from Crill all the way to 1.
And that's one of the busiest. I mean, it's
Correct.
really a very busy road that gets utilized all the time. Very good. One other question, how, your staff, I mean, they came to you with this is their
Yes.
recommendations, because they're out in the county, and plus the phone calls you receive.
The phone calls I receive, I've got RJ White that's out in the county everywhere with dirt to pave. He's always bringing me recommendations. He's actually working on my restriping list I'll be bringing to you to go out to bid. Thank you for the budget that I have for restriping. So we're working on that. Citizen phone calls, and just me and my operations manager being on the road and seeing what needs to be done.
Yeah, so we're just not willy-nilly, I'm going to
No,
throw out
ma'am.
another term, willy-nilly doing this. We have a system in place for our whoop-de-doo and our willy-nilly.
Here you go.
Okay.
Mr. Helms, it happens after the whoop-de-doo.
In all seriousness, I'm glad we can have a little bit of fun.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
All right, are there any other questions?
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve the list for resurfacing as presented to us today.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a proper second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Well,
Thank
remember,
you.
4 and
Yes.
5 did this.
Yeah, yes, sir. I would like to, I appreciate the recognition for the engineering. Just, Scott does a great job back there, but just to
a
name
whole
everybody
team.
with, yeah, it's a team with our project managers. They're killing it with Danita and Lisa. Will is doing a lot of all of our CAD for us and has come along very, very quickly. Marie is our right-of-way specialist, and that's who I went to this morning, or Danita helped me with this, and then all of our right-of-way stuff goes through Marie, and then Wes and Andrew with the surveying and the equipment that you allowed us to get a few months ago we're not now lightning speed.
All right,
with
you can
our
just hold
survey.
on just a second. Ms. Young.
Slow lightning, but lightning.
It's me, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Mr.
Just one thing I want all the rest of the commissioners to know, and I've spoken with Mr. Newbold about it, and we've talked about briefly with Mr. Stout, is looking at that Highway 17, Old 17 South, what has been commonly referred to this morning as the whoop-de-woos, okay? There may be a potential option to not continue Old Highway 17 there if it looks like a huge expenditure, and turn that traffic to Clifton Road and take it just one block to the north and put it 17 there. That is a very wet, the spot has got a lot of unsuitables underneath it. If it does look like it's going to be a major undertaking, I would, as we move forward, I just wanted all y'all to be aware of the same conversation that we've had, that we may look at that and come back and reevaluate and try to make the improvements on Clifton Road from Old Highway 17 up to 17, and not continue that portion, because I don't know that there's anything we're going to do in there to stabilize that soil.
Commissioner Newbold.
I have done a little bit of groundwork in the community to just get a feel for what pushback we might get with that. And it's been surprisingly calm. That's an area that people recognize is going to be a costly fix, although it's a little bit of a shortcut. Right now, there are wrecks there like you wouldn't believe. I'll bet you there's been 10 significant wrecks there in the last number of years. So that idea of running out to Clifton might accomplish a number of things. We wouldn't have to deal with that in the future. Clifton, US 17 is a very active and a little dangerous stretch. This may give us a little more ammunition to achieve a caution light there over time from the state. So I like this idea. It's economically responsible, and I think it would be a plus in the long run.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, do you have anything else for us?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
I have a question. How are we going to move forward on our ditch systems as far as keeping them clean and mowing and all that? I know you had, at one point, we discussed the possibility of setting up a group. Are you still doing that?
We have a right-of-way crew right now, 4 individuals. 2 are under Davy Hager, and they are south end of the county. 2 are under Tony Paprosky, and they're the west and north end. And they've got the boom mowers, the Mower Maxes, and a couple Challengers, and then Cooper's on our Spider, and he's doing outfalls as we need them done. And right now they're finishing up some in South. They're now back in East Palatka. There's some in District 2. They're on Springside Shortcut. If you go home tonight, when you go home tonight and drive that, it looks like a brand new road. And what they're doing out there, Hunter Road looks awesome. So they're keeping the ditches clean. And they're mowing them well enough now that the maintenance on them is going to be very simple.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. That was exciting news.
And the ditch work, we've got the grade alls going right now. They're reestablishing ditches on the west end. Dalton's got a crew out there working right now, so things are moving.
Yeah,
And-
no, I appreciate that because wasn't that long ago before you came on board that there wasn't a lot of work going on in the ditches and culverts. And
Right.
now we're having to pay the price of cleaning it up and getting that water
Yeah.
moving again and staying. You're never going to stay ahead of it, but it's just like, do you get up and make your bed every day or not?
Right.
But you need to because it's the right thing to do, and so we have to keep these ditches cleaned out.
We're seeing a lot of positives from it.
Right.
We were even getting phone calls from citizens. Hey, this looks great. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
that's awesome.
So and we also learned that when you put the same guy on the same machine,
Yes.
he starts taking pride.
Yeah.
And they like that I did that, and so there's a lot of pride taking place in our work.
That's exciting. Commissioner Pelletier?
You mentioned Hunter Road, and I wanted to just blow that flute a little bit. We had a tremendous problem of vandalism out there, kids doing a lot of bad things, spinning the road up, trashing it, and I worked with Mr. Stout, and we've cut some deeper ditches, and we've made it more unappealing for that type of
Correct.
activity out there, and it has, through the SO's help also, we've got that to go way down, and we're moving in a real positive direction. And some people are going to have to put in some culverts to get into their properties, but you know what? We had to do what was right for everybody, not just what's going to save them a culvert. But I'm tickled to death with progress over there
Sure.
in Public Works. Thank you.
Commissioner Alexander?
The same. The complaint I had last week about the ditch, you guys addressed it 2 days later, and she called me the next day. She says, I want to let those guys know, and I apologize for not telling you sooner, but she said thank you, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Yep.
Also, did the new piece of equipment you guys bought for the boom, the elevated boom for cutting the tree limbs, how's that working out?
Very well. We had some learning pains, first running it. When I get my new Kubota in, skid steer, hopefully in February. They didn't have it on the lot, but when that comes in, a joystick will be easier to run than the foot pedals on the Bobcat, so it'll look better. But they've been, sorry, Mr. Newell, they've been on County Road 308, taking care of some stuff down there. Yeah, I know the equipment's in District 1.
We're gonna have to talk about that.
Sorry, Mr. Newell.
Just no love for 4 and 5.
Yeah,
None.
none.
Just an update for the community. They bought a new piece of equipment. Instead of going down our roads where they have overgrown trees and trimming up 6 or 8 feet, 10 feet, how high can you trim up now?
It'll go up to 20 feet.
So we don't have to go back every 6 months and address
Correct.
a small limb or a branch. They take
Yeah.
care of it for
And
6
I've
months.
instructed them at least at the white line, trim it to where I don't really want to come back in my tenure here, which I need to be 10 to 12 years, just throwing that out there. It doesn't need to be short. So anyway,
You may have to be funded by District 1 here shortly.
but yes, it's going very well, and the roads that they have been on you can, as soon as you pull onto the road, it is wide open. You're not going to hit your RV with the or RVs or boats, T-tops, that kind of stuff. We went down to Elgin, took care of that boat ramp, so we're getting a lot of stuff cleaned up.
Yeah, it's a large county, 827 square miles, so it's a
Yep.
large county to take care of. All right, any other questions for Mr. Stout? Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
We
you.
appreciate your presentation.
Madam
And we got another
Lord.
round of applause.
Madam Chair, if we could also, one other program that started, I think will help a lot, is a herbicide program that we've started this
Oh, I'm glad you're
this
mentioning that.
past winter. We're going to move into the spring. A lot of times it's really difficult to get around all of our signs because we tend to have them everywhere. And it's really difficult for a 15-foot bat wing to mow around. So we have implemented a herbicide program. It's being currently done by an inmate supervisor that's able to go out to the county SO jail and pick up inmates every day, and they're out there with either a weed eater or a herbicide rig, and they're starting to take care of the roadsides, which I think will make a huge improvement this spring as we move forward.
Very good.
They didn't clap for you. I don't know why
Yeah.
that didn't happen.
Oh, it was slow. It's okay. All right. Are there any other public comments on miscellaneous items? Would anybody like to speak on miscellaneous items? All right, going into our appointments. Do we have any appointments, starting with Commissioner Pelletier?
Yes, ma'am. I have one. Madam Chair, for the Better Place Oversight Committee,
Yes.
Luann McClellan.
All right. Laura's getting that. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, Commissioner Alexander.
No appointments.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey.
I have none, ma'am.
Commissioner Newbold.
I have none today.
All right, and then for the, I have one, Parks and Rec, Jenny Robbins at large. She said that she would be willing to serve. So that's my motion. Can I get a second?
I'll make a motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then Ms. McGibbon, I see she's on here to be reappointed, so we'll just, at the same time, I make a motion that we reappoint Brenda McGibbon.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, very good. We got those done. All right, moving along. Clerk Reynolds did text me. He wasn't able to make it. So we'll move on to County Attorney Rich Commando.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to bring your attention, there was a previous lease that was approved by the board with Copper Roads out at the port. So even though we didn't have a port meeting today, it's been brought to my attention that there's some language in that lease that isn't the same as our other leases as far as how extensions are renewed. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up that that lease is going to come back before you at our next meeting for consideration again.
All right, very good. Commissioner Alexander, you had a question?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to touch on that lease a little bit. Mr. Suggs, is that the lease that I asked you about right after we came back from vacation?
One more time, sir?
Is that the lease that I questioned you about in your office when we came back from holiday?
Yes, it is.
And that's the lease that you told me that we had an ironclad out for the county?
No, sir. What I told you was what I said in the email that I responded back to you, not knowing that we did not include the language from the previous lease into the new lease. So that's where we're at with it.
Okay, so when we had our meeting, you told me that we did have an out in that lease. And I felt that it was strange that you didn't give me a copy of that lease. Let me finish, please.
I'm not saying anything, sir.
Okay.
I wouldn't be disrespectful.
Thank you. And at that point, I found that it was strange that you didn't provide me with a copy of that lease, but you said not to worry about it, that we're good. So at that time, I pulled the contract and I read it, and I didn't feel like there was an out for the county in that lease. And in an effort to give you an opportunity, maybe it was a mistake, to correct that, I sent you an email. And again, I questioned whether or not that lease had an ironclad out for the county. And again, you reassured me that it did. Excuse me, let me back up. Prior to me sending you that email, I reviewed it with my personal legal counsel to see if my interpretation was correct. And he said that it was correct. So at that point, I sent you that email, hoping that it was a mistake. And I would give you an opportunity to, hey man, I made a mistake, let's go through this and look at it. You said, no, it's ironclad. So at that point, I sent a copy to the county's legal counsel to see if I was correct in my interpretation. And he said, yes, I was. Then I made a phone call to you, again, hoping that we could get this worked out, and you would address it. And I gave you an opportunity to say, hey man, we made a mistake, let's get it taken care of. During the course of our conversation, I read the terms verbatim to you, and you told me that I didn't know what I was looking at and that I was reading it wrong. I did not appreciate that because I felt like you were questioning my intelligence. Because that would be the third time that I had visited that contract with you. And again, you told me I was wrong. Instead of a collaborative effort where you could have said, hey man, let's sit down and talk about it with Rich, or let's go do this, or let's go do that. You didn't do that. You questioned my intelligence and made me feel uncomfortable in the fact that I was just trying to serve the community and not enter into a contract that had no out for us. Because the primary reason that you gave us for leasing this property to Copper Roads was that you would have a 6-month contract that we could get out of at any point in time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And when That's the only answer I need. So, did we have anybody else that was interested in leasing this property?
Before we go down
Did we
that,
have anybody else that was interested in leasing the property?
originally, yes.
Okay. And
But
what
if
did
you'll
they-
let me speak now.
No, sir. I'm
Okay.
not done yet.
Okay, go ahead.
What did they offer to pay us for that?
If it would have been included in the original release, it would have been more than what we rented it for, but it was
Okay.
not, if you'll let me finish the answer.
Okay.
We were not interested in leasing the entire 15-plus acres at that point in time. We thought it would be more beneficial for the county with the project that we currently got going, not to enter into a lease that would hold that property up for another 3 to 5, 6 years. We decided at that point it wasn't in the county's best interest to lease that entire parcel.
That makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. With that being said, when we extended this offer to Copper Roads at $1,250 a month, it seems to me that it would make good business sense to circle back around and see if our other tenant out there was interested in leasing that property at $5,000 a month, which they had originally offered. I have a question why we didn't do that.
The lease came in front of the Board of County Commissioners and the Port Authority, at which time it was advertised. Now, let's go back, if you want to give me an opportunity to respond. I'd be a little bit.
advertised?
Madam
Commissioner,
Chair, may I
please let him
respond? I'd be a little more concerned if the actual conversation that we had was characterized correctly this morning, but it was not. So I don't want to go down that road, but we can if we want to, because that's not exactly how the conversation went. In fact, that telephonic conversation that he's referring to, I think I had the conversation and it was like, you know what, you may be right now that we've looked at the lease. And so that same day, Mr. Sullivan and I reached out to the county attorney with the language issue, because the original contract for the other 8 acres did have a provision in the contract that says it could be extended with mutual agreement from both parties. For whatever reason, that language was left out of this one by mistake. So we corrected that. We corrected it on Thursday afternoon.
And that's what Rich Commando was just speaking of, is that we would be bringing that language back.
Yes, ma'am. So to characterize that I gave bad information, false information, or flat out lied is unacceptable to your county administrator, because that's not exactly what happened. We can argue this if we want. I will just say that the conversation happened Thursday afternoon. We corrected it with the county attorney.
Well, and if I recall correctly, that was a board decision. We did not want to go into a long-term lease.
Yeah,
On that second piece of property when the first presentation was offered.
I understand that completely.
Okay.
But it doesn't make sense to not extend that same term to an interested party for $5,000 or for $3,750 more a month than what we chose to lease that to them.
Was the interested party willing to do it for 6 months?
Ma'am, they presented an offer to terminate their lease or lease it back to the county at any time during the initial time frame.
Say that again.
They offered to pay up front $60,000 to lease that property. At any point in time, they were willing to terminate that lease and lease it back to the county for $1 a month.
And just to be clear, I mean, Commissioner, you opened this Pandora's box.
Yes, ma'am.
So just to be clear, and I would never disrespect you, but this is the company your brother represents?
Yes, ma'am. Full disclosure, it is. And with that being said,
Because I do feel like you need to disclose that. Thank you.
yes, ma'am, that is full disclosure. But this event occurred in July of last year.
Right.
I was not on the board and had no involvement in it whatsoever. And we, as a commission, were not presented with that information when we were asked to sign a lease for $1,250 a month. I would not have approved that if I had known that there was another interested party interested in that property for almost 3 times. Now, as you talk about opening a Pandora's box, we have a man that has invested millions of dollars in this community between the airport, between the port, and we leased him a piece out there for $120,000 for 10 acres that he paid up front, who is now questioning the value of his lease because we have in turn leased an adjacent property that he expressed an interest to for $1,250 a month, and he had offered $5,000 a month.
Okay. So I think the difference would have been the short-term lease
Why was that? And-
versus a long-term lease.
But the tenant offered to terminate their lease at any point in time.
Bid process and an advertisement.
The
One
advertise,
requires
no,
more
ma'am,
required.
that's not exactly how it goes about. The process was that the company came in and made an offer to come in because it's a local business wanting to have an opportunity to open up a short-term lease until they got their property up and running so they could do their business on their private property. It was brought to the Board of County Commissioners, or the Port Authority, I apologize, with that language within the lease agreement itself for a 6-month lease with 6 additional 3-month terms. So that's where we're at. And the original offer from the previous lease that wanted the entire thing was actually a 5-year lease that we said, no, we couldn't do 5 years, we could do 3, because that's still port property that we're going to utilize with our development of the Port Authority. And so, after talking to the commissioners, we decided at that time, the previous commissioners, that it was best for us not to lease the entire parcel for 3 to 5 years and utilize it for whatever process we need with the Army Corps project. Now, when this opportunity came up for this business owner, it was brought to the Board of County Commissioners or the Port Authority, and it was vetted out here, and it was approved for a 6-month term with 6 3-month addition extensions.
All
And
right.
that's where we're at now.
So go ahead.
Can I hear from Commissioner Harvey, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me go back to when this first came available to us. We bought that property from Georgia Pacific for a lot of money.
Yeah,
But
we need to
did
get some
not
money back.
buy it for the fact of making money on the property. We bought it for the fact of developing our port one day. When the lease came up, and I remember Mr. Alexander brought to us and his business partners, what excited me the most was getting that building on the property fixed. That's really what excited me. I wasn't excited about renting it, even though you say, well, we're going to bring income in and we're going to set up a new company, yes, but, we still had plans. Long-term plans are that's going to support our port activities in the future. So I was willing to go along with a lease on that part. I think it makes common sense for us to lease the second part of that out to a business that wants to get started that is very limited to where they can put their business at. And that's the problem that we're facing. If you could set up a car dealership anywhere, then that's probably not that important.
Well,
But you can't set up an asphalt plant anywhere, and we're doing this for economic development, and we're doing it to hopefully help drive the cost of our roads down. Now, I don't know if that will or won't, but I'm just going to say I think that's the opportunities we have available to us. But in
So
the
do
future,
we have an agreement in place for
in
discounted
the
rates?
future, I would hope that we develop that property ourselves as a port and expand our own port abilities and not lease that out for long-term business. My opinion is they were going to come in here and help us with the building. They were going to set that up, and then they were going to find their own space later on down the road to do business in. And that's what I supported. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alexander. I know you're excited.
It's dollars and cents to me. We tell people that we can't raise people's pay. We can't do this. We lose code enforcement officers. We lose animal control officers. We threw away $60,000 and even more if I hadn't caught the verbiage in this contract, he'd have been there for 2 years. If we would have approved the contract initially when Mr. Nations approached us, he could have been there for those 2 years. But at minimum, if this contract would have been approved in July of last year, in 3 months' time, we'd make more off of him than we did off of the entire contract. And now I've been told that we're having to add an additional access gate at the taxpayer's expense to accommodate a tenant that's paying a third of what we had offered. Yeah, I'm not happy. I was
Madam Chair.
I was elected to do my due diligence and be a steward of this county and the county's resources and their dollars. That is not a strategic decision. If you were selling real estate and you got somebody that's going to offer you $1 million for a piece of property or $5 million, who are you going to sell it to? Commissioner Pelletier, you got a guy offering you $1 for a barbecue sandwich or $5. Who's getting a barbecue sandwich? Sorry, that's where I'm at.
All right, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, the culvert that might be being put in, it's only going to benefit our property, and we'll use that in the future. One thing that almost really squashed the deal for me on renting it to, and you referred to Mr. Nations, was I wanted a gate on the north end. I really dug my heels in on that one. We weren't allowed to have a gate. For whatever reason, the client didn't want one. So I said, okay, fine. But my whole intention one day is for us to have a bigger footprint at the port and to be able to use that property. We use that property, not somebody else. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. So, Mr. Suggs, did you want to have a few minutes?
So, sure. The only comment that I would make moving forward is that the 5 commissioners should know that I've always been open, honest, and clear in any of my transactions and dealings with the Board of County Commissioners. And if you have any question about that, I'd have no issue with any of you coming and sitting with me and having a conversation.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
And I did have that conversation. And when did you say you received that decision from Mr. Commando regarding that contract? That was Thursday, wasn't it?
I emailed Mr. Commando on Thursday, yes,
You
sir.
told me earlier you said you got a response from him on Thursday or Friday. Which was it?
No, I said we had a conversation. Once again,
I'm
characterize it
I'm
correctly.
asking you to clarify because it
I
sounded
did. And what I said was we had a conversation on Thursday regarding the language within the contract. And an amended contract was emailed on Thursday.
Mr. Commando, when did you tell Mr. Suggs that he was incorrect in his thinking on that?
I don't remember. It was Thursday or Friday. I
Okay,
apologize.
so it was last week.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the most recent email I got from you, Mr. Suggs, I emailed you Saturday, and you didn't respond back to me until yesterday. So you knew that I was correct about the verbiage being wrong on Thursday or Friday of last week. And you told me in the email that you had a follow-up later. I asked you whether or not that verbiage was correct.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
the email that, again, Commissioner Alexander is referring to, he sent me an email on Sunday, not Saturday, so let's be correct in everything that we talk about here this morning. And it came in at 12:52 p.m., and I responded on Monday. And the email was, did you ever talk to Rich about this one on Friday? And my response was, I have spoken to Mr. Commando and have a follow-up later today.
All right. Well, the bottom
In the
line is we're
discussion.
here to resolve the issue, and the issue is that Mr. Commando has recommended that we'll have it on our next agenda to fix the language in the contract.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
But I would like just one more time, and I'm probably not listening to the advice of my attorney. But if we're going to have a conversation, we're going to put it on the record, and it needs to be an honest conversation.
Yes, sir.
I
And,
completely agree. I
and
think
quite
everybody
frankly,
agrees with that.
the conversation that started out here this morning was not characterized properly or honestly in the conversation that we had. And he can get upset if he'd like, that's okay. He accused me of something, so I'm going to clear the record for my own reputation. The conversation that he and I had when he asked Mr. Grimes to leave my office so he could have a berating conversation with me one-on-one, we had that conversation. We were fine. We've had multiple meetings since then. Nothing else has come up. No discussion has came up about this lease agreement other than Thursday of last week when we moved forward with it. And my conversation on the phone was, you may be right. I need to talk to the county attorney. And I did exactly that on Thursday.
All right, Commissioner Pelletier.
I I'm up in the bushes here somewhere because I'm catching them on the tail end of this and very unfamiliar with exactly what all has transpired. So I've got some catch up to do, but I will say going forward, I want to be sure, I think this is the way we operate, and if we don't, I think we should. It is staff's job to bring forward each and every and all possible contracts or people of interest of using, leasing, renting our properties, and this board makes that decision. Staff makes recommendations. This board makes those decisions. And that the way it's protocol?
Yes, sir, that is protocol.
All right. I just
And
wanna
that's
be sure
exactly what we did.
I'm on
Yes, sir.
track there.
Yes, sir.
But I've got some catch up to know what's going on here because I'm in the dark. But
You know, in all seriousness, I know this seems a little heated, but at the same time, it's a good conversation to have because we have to figure out how we're moving forward as an organization, and we have to have these kind of conversations. Not everything is sunshine and roses. Commissioner Alexander.
I just have one last question. Mr. Commando, did Mr. Suggs ask you if he needed to bring this back before the commissioner, or if y'all could just take care of it internally?
So he did ask me whether or not, and actually it was my opinion at first blush that because it was a non-material change from the direction of the commission, that it may not need to come back. And when you and I talked, we kind of talked through what the different possibilities were, and after that conversation, I agreed with you that it should come back to the commission for consideration.
Yes, sir. Thank you, because that was not the contract I voted on, and we voted on, because we didn't have all the information, I felt, regarding the interest in this
I
property.
think the contract was in our agenda package, was it not?
It was in the agenda package. What I'm referring to is the fact that we voted on a contract vote, not knowing that there were other parties that were interested in this. And that wasn't brought before the board. Mr. Sullivan, can you approach, please?
We don't normally do this, but I'll give you some levity because I know you're trying to get this resolved.
No, absolutely.
We don't like putting staff on
Good morning.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Fine.
I have
you?
a question.
Yes, sir.
When you offered to lease the property to the asphalt plant, I know we did it in the hopes of encouraging a new business and helping them out. I'm all for it, local business. But at the end of the day, we have a finite number of resources as a county that we can derive revenue from. And I'd like to see our revenue sources maximized so that we are able to give staff raises and provide for our community. So my question is, why did we not circle back around and ask Mr. Nation's group if they were interested in leasing that property? Or maybe you did, and maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think that's a question that Sam has to answer.
Well, he's the one that dictates where it goes.
I know, but he works for Mr. Suggs, and Mr. Suggs, everybody works for Mr. Suggs. So at the end of the day, it's on Mr. Suggs.
Well, I'm asking where he got the direction from.
All right.
I'll be glad to answer.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sir, my understanding was that Mr. Nations and Mr. Alexander's interests on the southern part of the property were long-term. That was my understanding, sir, and that's why I did not back around on the advice of our consultant who is helping us develop the port long-term, and the need on that southern property for dredging material is most likely within the next 3 years. That would mean that Mr. Copper Road's possible leasing of that property would just fit in the window. So therefore, we would have some revenue that fits in the window that does not jeopardize the long-term development and operations of creating a port which will bring revenue and jobs to our community. So that is why they would not approach. It was not a disregard for them or anything. It was just the thought, my understanding was that they needed long-term. And that's why we gave them the north part, at least the north part to them. We don't want to jeopardize operation. We are very happy that they're there. That was just our understanding. That's why they were not approached.
We have a timeline. Thank you, Sam.
With that being said, Sam, did Mr. Nations and Mr. Alexander send you a message saying that they would be willing to terminate that contract on that piece of property at any point in time?
I don't have recollection. I would have to check messages and emails, sir, to be able to answer that
well,
properly.
I do have that. So it just makes sense to me, and maybe it's an oversight. Let's chalk it up to that. And that's where I'm at, Terry. Let's chalk it up to that. But if we have an opportunity to capitalize on resources in the county, it's hard for me to go back to my constituents and say that we had an opportunity to garner another 60, 100. I mean, if you'd have put Jeff in there at 2 years, at 24 months, at $5,000, how much money is that? That's a lot of money. If we'd extended that same opportunity to him. So I would just like to see us be a little more strategic with what we do. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It sounds like there was a timing issue with as well. Anyway, so with that being said, we'll move forward. You'll be bringing that back, Mr. Commando.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. On to County Administrator.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Outside of the last few minutes, I think what we had here today was a great meeting. I would like to commend, if I could, Mr. Briar Tilton, who I don't see in the room right now, but that young man did a marvelous job for his first attempt, and I think he understands now why there's a podium, because it keeps everybody from seeing your knees shaking. So, but no, he did a great job. Staff has always done a great job, and yes, that engineering department that we have put together at the County Public Works has done an outstanding job. As you see, we've got projects now on the list for 24, 25, and 26, and we're just in the beginning of 25. So I think it's been a great meeting for staff. So again, thank Mr. Grimes for his input on the questions here today, and Ms. Young as well. And so I look forward to a good rest of the day. Don't forget today's voting day. And we'll be at the canvassing board tonight at 5 o'clock. So, get out and vote and do your patriotic duty. So thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you. We'll start to my right, Commissioner Pelletier. I know. I want you to,
No, it's fine. It's fine.
because you think you're District 5, which means you think you're going to go last. So that means I'm going to make you go first.
It's not a problem. Very briefly, the only thing I was going to say is highlight Mr. Suggs. Today is voting day. Polls open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You must go to your precinct to vote. You cannot vote at the county offices. A lot of people get tangled up and forget that. But to those of us that study the political game pretty closely, we know it well. But it's 7 a.m., 7 p.m., and you must go to your precinct. And please get out and vote. It's not been a great turnout, but it is so important to our process in this country. And thank you very much.
All right. Very good. Commissioner Alexander. I like to skip around.
No, you do. Absolutely, absolutely. And, I don't want to mistake, I know things got a little heated for the discussion today, but I don't want anybody to ever question my respect for Mr. Suggs. He's done a tremendous service for this community for, I guess, 8 years now.
Yes, sir.
And my only thing, I would like to see a more collaborative approach. He's got vast amounts of knowledge, and I fully respect that. So, saying that, I had a good meeting. I hope everybody gets out there and votes today, and looking forward to working together with everyone.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Newbold.
Good deal. I'll lighten it up a little bit. A little public service announcement. The concerned citizens of South Putnam are holding their third annual Soul Food Festival on February the 21st and 22nd in Crescent City. On the 22nd, which is a Saturday, there'll be a parade starting at 12. They'd like to invite us as commissioners to participate in the parade, so come down and enjoy some great food. They'll have some music and a good time to be had by all, and I'll pass that information to you by email, and would love to see you there.
All right. Vice Chair Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the meeting today. I know you're a little under the weather, but I think you did a fine job. And enjoy the conversation that we have. That's government in the sunshine right there at best. And unfortunately, sometimes it feels a little discomforting. But truly, we can all sit up here and share what we knew, why we knew it, what we did. I remember former Commissioner John Eubanks told me when I was getting appointed, you can only deal with the information you have at hand at the day you get it. And things change, and they do change in government. And our job is to keep on top of that and look at these contracts, and we do. I look at them too, Commissioner Alexander. I read them, and I find questions, and I'm on the phone with Rich Commando on Saturday morning talking about situations. Don't encourage everybody to call him on Saturday morning, but I just said, are you up? And I have big ideas for that port out there and what's going to take place. Sam, I want to say to you, thank you for what I'm hearing on the radios about the Port Putnam contest. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I know that was an idea that we shared, and Commissioner Wilkinson picked it up and really ran with it. This is something that is going to be exciting for Putnam County, and it's not a little idea. This is a big, we're the furthest inland port in Florida, and crossing the hurdles that we did, very important. But the future of that port's going to be very important to Putnam County too, and we've got a lot of interest in using that area. So I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for the condolences. Lost a family member last night. Family is how we define it in Putnam County. Doesn't have to be blood. It can be adopted family, if you will. Had a lady that years ago when I was very young, her and her husband helped me along the path, my journey in life. And after I got burned out of a home down off the Horse Landing Road, I had no place to go, and I wasn't going back home. And I didn't mind sleeping in my station wagon that I had, but I got a little uncomfortable every now and then. So they took me in. Well, over the years, we became family, and I've helped them, and they've helped me. And she passed away last night with a great homegoing in the hospital room, and it was just a very peaceful, private, prayerful time. And Linda Hill was very important to me, as her husband Guy was. And you have those people in life that invest in you, and you hope to be able to give back one day. And I appreciate all the comments that I've seen and everybody's heartfelt condolences. And believe me, it wasn't a loss. We know where she went, and she had prepared her life for that. So thank you all very much. And Madam Chair, that's the end of my comments.
All right, before I start, Commissioner Alexander, you have one more thing you'd like to bring up?
Yes, ma'am. Things got heated earlier, and that should have clued me into the most important thing that I wanted to say today. As most of you know, I had a little cookout Saturday at the house.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you did, sir.
And I wanted to personally thank every one of our EMS staff that came out and assisted me at my house. I was planning on doing a ride-along with some of you guys, but you guys went ahead and demonstrated at the house what a great job you do and how competent you are in your work. JR, Mr. Back, you guys, you carry a lot of weight and respect when you're walking around in that field out there through the course of an emergency. And the guys you have in the field stayed calm, acted like it was no big deal. Let's get it done. And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate their help. If y'all could let them know for me.
So you were barbecuing on your boat?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. But you could
Just making sure I'm clearing that up.
You could have barbecued from my front yard from the heat coming off of my boat.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm a little under the weather. I'm pushing through. I wanted to thank you, Commissioner Alexander, for attending the Women's Resource 5K run out at Coventry. I couldn't make it, and I understand it was a success. I usually do that, and you covered for me, so I appreciate that. On Saturday, I think it was a good event. We had a couple dog adoptions this weekend, one at Pet Sense. I had stopped by there. Maybe it was last weekend. I don't know. It all runs together sometimes. But anyway, they do usually one on Saturday and one on Sunday. And the one on Sunday is usually up in Jacksonville. So they usually hold two events every weekend. And I know we got out, I think at least a dozen animals over the weekend, adopted or either in rescue, so that's very exciting. And also I want to thank the people who worked the cold weather shelter. On one night, they had 20 people that showed up. So they had anywhere from 14 to 20 people this week at the cold weather shelter at Westminster Hall downtown. And I think that's very helpful for those people because, as you know, it got very, very cold for us Florida people. And I know we have our community paramedicine program is about to, they're in their training portion, but at some time going forward, Mr. Grimes, I'd like for us to do an update in front of the board, and you tell us and explain to our citizens what that program, what you and see going forward and how that's going to impact our community.
Most certainly, I'd like to do that, as well as our program that we've ran through the schools and our apprenticeship program through our public safety trainees. And we actually put our first 3 that started in our apprenticeship program. They started their full-time careers on, I think it was Monday, Tuesday, and maybe tomorrow, as they were spread out amongst the shifts. So that's a great success program, too, is our local kids that went through a program, learned it, and have gone here. So I'd like to do that presentation as well.
Yeah, so we'll get that on the agenda for upcoming, and I think it's very important for us to know that and for our citizens. And then I have spoken, just to let the board know, one-on-one with Administrator Suggs about helping come up with some kind of retention policy, and or not, I don't know if I want to call it a policy, maybe a retention initiative, a project. Like Commissioner Alexander mentioned, and it is something that we have all faced, which is the turnover rate. It is better. I will say it is better than it used to be, but we need to do more. And so what does that look like? And I've floated some ideas to him of things that maybe we could do. So if you guys have ideas, because it costs, I am a firm believer that it costs us more money when we have to continually train people. And to JT's point, you get people on the road, and once they're experienced in cutting or even mowing or digging ditches, that experience is worth something. And so how do we retain those employees and stay competitive in the market? And while the government's good at offering benefits, what else can we do? And I think there's some things that and I don't want to, spill the beans because we might not be able to implement a lot of the ideas. But I would like for him, Mr. Suggs, and it's one of his initiatives as well. He brought it to me at the beginning of the year, and I think it's very good that we look at what can we do for our staff for retention going forward to help keep our staff here. Anyway, so that's a goal that we have both set together as chair and as administrator as we go through the new year. So I look forward to you and your team coming up. I think they're going to try to maybe come up with a committee, and not that they're going to meet every month, but just hear back a little bit from each department and then see what we can come up with. So I appreciate y'all working on that and with Ms. Parker. And I think that's very important for the future of our staff and our county, because people who stay here are going to be, it's just beneficial to everybody. So I appreciate that. Are there any other comments or questions before we close?
I got one quick
Yes,
comment,
sir.
real quick. And I got to apologize to Take Stock and oh, goodness gracious, I've got the
Children, Take Stock and
Children program. I was unable to attend yesterday. There was a presentation in Crescent City. A young lady, first name is Mia. I don't have her last name on the top of my head, but she was the recipient of a $40,000 scholarship to one of 6 in the state. And we have great kids here. We do have a good school system, and it's showing. And I just wanted to congratulate the young lady and applaud the Take Stock in Children program.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know, that's the program that's through the Goodwill Industries, and they're doing really good in our community, and we're so glad that they're here in Putnam because they are making a difference. Wendy Letterman is their local person.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have been a mentee for mentor for probably over 20 years with
Oh,
Take
wow.
Stock and
I
Children.
didn't know that.
And currently, I have 2 young men at Interlochen High School that I mentor. That program, if you don't know it, actually starts back in middle school, and they make a contract for children who might not seem to go to college or VOTEC school. And And then they're monitored, and they're partnered with a mentor. And I'm in constant contact with mine to see how their grades are, see how their attendance is, anything I can help do to help their journey along life. So I'm glad you said that, but there is also room at the table if anybody wants to volunteer. I guarantee you there's more out there than we can handle. But we want to be successful in getting these kids, these children, young men and women graduated and go on to a better degree. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Palacio.
Very briefly, I know everybody's ready for lunch. I highly applaud your program or research into employee retention. When I was here before, our pay scale was far less than it is now, and I got them to implement, being part of Public Works, a 4-day work week, which made a very happy work environment. And I understand we're working on to maybe enhance that and spread that out a little further within different departments in our area, as long as our county's covered, the 5 days during the work weekend, of course, weekends for emergencies, but that's a great thing, and we need to do that as much as possible, anything we can do to encourage that employee retention, because as Mr. Stout said, you get an employee on a piece of equipment and he takes pride in his work, and guess what, the longer he stays and on that same piece of equipment, he's going to get better and do a better job and be more efficient, and it just works for everybody.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, with that, this meeting is